Greetings from Hopalong Hollow. This is Jerry. Sitting here on the comfort of my front porch in the shade and looking out on this magnificent chaste bush, it's easy for me to understand why I garden. But what about those times when it's 90 degrees outside and you're out there sweating and muddy and pulling weeds and you're wondering, what on earth am I doing? What am I doing out here? Why am I going through all this? I've compiled a list of why I garden and why you should garden too, if you're not already. I'm sure you could add to my list at the end of this video in the comments. But in the meantime, let's talk about the many, many reasons why you should be a gardener. And the first thing I'm going to start with is gardening is great exercise. Gardening is great exercise. What with all cultivating, digging, weeding, gardening requires stamina, especially when you're doing battle with the enemy. The enemy in this case is Virginia Creeper. Coming down. Good grief. Gardening teaches you how to use tools for the simplest tasks. Gardening teaches you how to build things from nothing but sticks and logs. From the quirkiest structures to those that are useful and whimsical. And even the most practical. I built this little greenhouse from old doors and windows. The window box right here on the greenhouse is actually an aluminum gutter, which I painted to look like aging copper. It's not quite filled up yet with soil, but I'm putting sedum in here because it gets so hot here that it requires a plant that doesn't need a lot of water. Gardening teaches you how to think outside the box, to use your imagination and be creative, taking items that you normally might toss away or use for some other purpose and using them to great advantage in your garden. Planted with runner beans. I'm hoping they'll climb up that plum tree. These old wagon wheels make great plant separators. I just plant my tiny seedlings or my seeds in each little triangular space. It protects them from the chickens coming in and scratching around. And it separates the plants from one another. It gives me a nice little planting area. This is an old iron headboard from a bed, and this makes a great trellis. Heavy. Gardening teaches you how to repair things that are important to your garden. Gardening teaches you patience. I have been waiting for 2 months for these astrontia seeds to germinate, and so far I've only got one teeny tiny seedling, and for all I know it's a weed. You see, everybody else in this tray is long gone and into the garden, but not these seeds. Oh well, I might get one plant out of the whole batch. Gardening helps you to think big. Even when you're starting out very, very small. Gardening helps you to dream. When you're looking at this, but you're imagining this, or this, or this, dreaming of what could be. Gardening is exciting because it's exciting to watch something that you planted from seed grow into something spectacular and beautiful just from a tiny little plant. Gardening can teach you when to let go. Here's a prime example of me having to let go of something. I have killed, already this year, it's only July 1st, I have killed 5 lavender plants, new lavender plants. This is my only survivor right here. This is a Spanish lavender. It's doing pretty good right now, but I don't know if it'll make it. Over the years, I've killed dozens and dozens of them. I've had some luck with them. I've had some beautiful plants, but all in all, they just die on me. I've come to the conclusion I can't grow lavender here, not in my garden. And so I've learned that I'm going to let go of the lavender desire to have borders of lavender, fields of lavender. It's not going to happen here. I'll replace it with something just as lovely and go on from there. It's easier to let go sometimes, and it keeps you from stressing out over something you have no control over. So gardening teaches you how to let go. Gardening requires that you become more organized. When you've got hundreds of seed packets, all the plants requiring different growing conditions, different soils, different heights, different temperatures, different water requirements, it's important to keep them all in order and to know exactly when things need to go into the ground. Not only does getting organized with your seeds feel a lot better, but it teaches you how to plant, when to plant, especially if you're keeping garden journals as well with charts. If you're collecting your own seeds, important to know what they are and where they are and when they need to be planted. Gardening really gives you the opportunity to get in touch with your little piece of earth, your little piece of ground, introduced to all sorts of life in that little piece of ground. Not just the honeybees, the bumblebees, and the beautiful things, the butterflies, but all those little creatures that dwell in the soil, going about their business. Little ant colonies, roly-poly bugs, worms. You even have an appreciation for the tenacity of the weed. It never gives up. The weed never gives up. Neither do the aphids, and neither do the wasps. I mean, none of us really are very fond of wasps, but I have to say that when we found some wasps recently in the greenhouse and we took their nests out, it wasn't but one night later they were there again building a nest in the very same spot. And they had already gotten about a quarter of the way through it before I had to take it down again. So it really does give you an appreciation for all sorts of life. Can be frustrating and disappointing at times. True gardeners are always hopeful. We're always saying, just wait until next year. We're always planning, always hopeful, always refining, rethinking, redoing, reorganizing. And then it's all worth it when that little tip of a plant, like a tulip, comes poking through the earth in spring. It just is like a thrill like you've never had before. That's something a gardener can understand, watching seedlings grow from a tiny infinitesimal seed into a 6-foot incredibly beautiful plant, or even a little carpet of creeping thyme, very low to the ground, and just hugging it just gives you a thrill. It can teach you to eat in a healthier manner, because you can't grow donuts and candy bars in your garden, but you can grow tomatoes, green peppers, blueberries, grapes, raspberries, strawberries, and on and on and on it goes. Even figs and citrus, and all kinds of lettuce. And of course, you aren't going to grow all those things without eating them. Strawberries. Gardening keeps you from becoming vain about your appearance, because if you've been working out in the garden all day long, you are not going to come out looking like Anne of Green Gables. You'll be covered in soil and smell like dirt, as you should. You might even smell a little like compost, but you're loving it, and all you need is a good bath. Well, now that I'm all cleaned up and my gardening is done for the day, I am feeling a little bit more like Anne with an E. Now, to sit back and enjoy it all. And a few more thoughts before we actually take a stroll around the garden, is that gardening can make you humble. It doesn't make you humble necessarily because no matter how beautiful your garden is, there'll always be somebody with more garden knowledge. There'll always be somebody with healthier roses or a better patch of blueberries or strawberries. They'll always be that way. That's not what makes you humble. At least for me, the most beautiful aspect of gardening is that of being in touch with the creator of all this. Nature is the visible garment of God, and you can't help but have a sense of wonder at it all. The variety, the life, the beauty, the drama, the stars, the moon, the rain, the sun, the animals, the creatures, everything that you encounter in your garden. You just have to have a sense of how wonderful it all is and marvelous, because the most wonderful gardener is the creator of the universe, the maker of seed and rain and sunshine and soil and all creeping things. And at least in my case, gardening puts me very much in touch with the presence of God. So in closing, I would just like to say, if you're not a gardener, give it a try, whether it's a window box or a little row of planters or something out on your balcony or a little patch of ground. Give gardening a try because you won't regret it. It's really a wonderful, wonderful thing to do. Those of you that are gardeners, tell us in the comments. Can you add to this list? I'm sure you can. I only mentioned a few things about how wonderful it is to garden and how good it is for you and how wonderful and peaceful and calming it is for the spirit, despite all the ups and downs that you go through. Let us know in the comments if you can add to this list or if you agree with anything on this list. Red, white, you'll notice that I have a star-spangled bunting on the table. This is an old bunting sent to me by one of my subscribers. Thank you. I told you I'd put this to use on the 4th of July, and so I am. I wanted to do some red, white, and blue on the table, and this was as close as I could get from the garden. The chaste bush, the loosestrife, the phlox, and the red monarda bee balm, bergamot. Pretty beautiful combination right there. Very simple bouquet. Happy birthday, America. And I had a really good 4th of July video last year. I'm going to link it at the end of this video so you can go ahead and watch that because it really was a good one. I liked that a lot. Didn't have time to do one this year. But we're going to take a stroll around the gardens now from the last couple weeks here in the garden, different things that have bloomed. And I hope that you will enjoy that. Remember this strip? Wow, this is that woodland strip we did a couple months ago. That was just down to bare ground, but now look at it. Irises. This is a roll doll. A beautiful David Austin rose, but aren't they all? Pelargoniums, or also known as tender geraniums. But, oh my goodness, what are you doing in here? I have no idea what that's doing in there. Oh, the Rubino's just peeking through, just barely, being taken over by the loose strife, which can be a bit of a problem. But at least I can still see many of the shorter plants in here. The heucheras, here's another roll doll. Heucheras are coming through. Spiderwort, very tall, gets very, very tall. Weird plant, but it blooms for a long time. Oh, I barely got to see these columbines. Here is another incredible rose from the Antique Rose Emporium. This is called a sweet drift rose. I have the one in pink and the one in red in the back. I actually prefer this one in pink. It's so incredible. Look at all these marvelous clusters. So beautiful. Love it. Right here, this is a beautiful, I just love the clusters of roses that this one provides. This is just a drift rose, a knockout drift rose, and next to it is a Caldwell pink from Antique Rose Emporium, growing all along this border. I love what is happening here in this accidental combination. These kind of fuchsia, not fuchsia, but what would you call this? Yeah, fuchsia, I guess. Fuchsia coneflowers growing along the pink yarrow, the Queen Anne's lace, and the roses, the pink roses are just cropping up right into the middle of this. I think it is such a pretty combination. And actually, I planted these next to each other, not knowing they would all intermingle together. But that's what cottage gardens do. They just take over, and you let them do what they want. What you see here are field lilies. They're wild lilies that just grow like crazy here in East Tennessee. They just can't help themselves. They just are adapted to this area, and they grow like crazy. Now, a lot of people look down on these for that very fact, because they're so common. And most people, a lot of gardeners don't like the color orange, myself included. But you know, sometimes when you have something that's growing natural around you, you have to either learn to love it or accept it, or you're just going to be miserable. And so that's why I have let these daylilies grow along the dry creek here, because I can't get rid of them. They grow underground by runners and tubers, and they spread like wildfire. But you know what? Every part of the daylily is edible. They are a very happy and jolly and wonderful, cheerful flower. So why not learn to love them? It is absolutely stunning. It looks a little bit treacherous, but it's really not that. It's really not that prickly as it looks. And I just love this ghostly sort of a purplish blue in the flower garden. I'd say this is probably 3-4 feet tall right now. And I just think it's a wonderful, wonderful plant. And you know what? It's growing over here by the daylilies, and they actually look really good together. These two contrasts. This one likes it really dry. The daylilies like it really wet. The daylilies are sitting in a sort of a dry creek ditch, and these are sitting in a raised bed. So field lilies and the oxeye daisy and the Queen Anne's lace are all just wild natural flowers growing here in East Tennessee. And when you add that beautiful blue sea holly to this bouquet, it is absolutely stunning. I was asked about this rose in a video a few weeks ago. This beautiful rose is called Bathsheba, David Austin rose, and it is a very lovely scented rose, very lush and rich. Beautiful peachy pink colors in the middle, kind of ivory along the edges, and as it gets older it turns a little more pale. I mean, as the rose matures, not as the rose bush matures.